Hello you lovely people and welcome. So we're going to take a look at the autopilot functions and navigation in the Iris Simulations PC-21. As you can see, I've got a flight plan laid out ahead of me. We're going to go to Cromwell Z02 up to D22-8C, then up to WAD 15, down to F125, and then back into Coningsby. So yeah, let's get into the I was going to say jet then, but it's not. Let's get into the aircraft and do some navigation. Okay, so if we take a look at the primary MFD in the center here, you'll see that we have the navigation mode in FMS, so it's running off the management system here. And we have our first waypoint, CWZ02, which is 10.9 nautical miles away. It's also showing us the direction of travel, and yeah, I believe that is the first waypoint on what is kind of a map. We don't actually have like a GPS map that shows the flight plan, so we just have to go with it. So going to get up in the air. I'm going to switch on the flight director and autopilot, which will settle the aircraft at that altitude and the heading, and then we'll get into navigating properly. Okay, take off flaps, everything's good. Right. Okay, brakes off. Let's go. Okay. And rotate. Weight off wheels, gear up. Flaps up. As you can see, we've got a little diamond that shows us our waypoint. So all is good, everything is showing up on the HUD as it should do. Going to hit flight director now and autopilot engaged. As you can see, we've got the roll and pitch changed there, or lit up with either side of the autopilot indicator. This is our set altitude, so if we go to if we switch to vertical speed, we can turn our vertical speed up by clicking that, and if we go to 1000 feet per minute, I'm also going to click nav, and now we are following, we're using the lateral navigation to follow the flight plan. And I have no control over it at the moment. It's still climbing to 6,000 feet, although I'm going to change that to 3,000 because I think 6,000 is a bit too high. So that's where you set your wanted altitude. If you click Alt, it will just do altitude hold. You need to use the vertical speed switch. Click here for vertical speed adjust, and then use this turn knob to adjust whether you want it to climb or descend, and then once it gets to its desired altitude, it will level out, and then it will go to altitude hold. So we're currently following the flight plan. As you can see here, if we zoom in slightly, we are still 4.5 nautical miles away. We should start turning now towards Waddington area, which we are, doing a slight bank there. So Cromwell will be out to my left here, or on the nose even. Yep, there's Cromwell, and RF Barkston Heath over there. RAF Waddington is over there to my right. There's Lincoln. Just doing a tight little loop back to Coningsby like I always do in all of my navigation videos, because this area is excellent for navigation. Okay, and we're going to speed it up slightly, throttle up. Okay, you can see that we've now switched over to our next waypoint, D228C. We'll get the diamond up on the HUD shortly. You can see we're nearly up to 30,000 feet here, and we're already in altitude hold. We're just going to get the speed up slightly so this is a little bit quicker. And what I'm going to do is going to hit the indicated airspeed once we hit 280 knots there, and let the aircraft control the speed now. Got no control on throttle. I'm moving the throttle up and down, nothing's happening. All automatic. No control over the stick. All automatic. No control over the climb. That's all set. Lovely. Okay, so we're approaching Waddington, which is just here to our right. Okay, and we're moving over to our next waypoint, which is WAD 15. There's RAF Waddington down there. Home of 51 Squadron, RC 135s. Soon, no, I was going to say the Wedgetail, which should really be based there, is going to be based up in Lossiemouth, so disregard that. Red Arrows are now based there, no longer at Scampton, and now a busy base for many military exercises that go on now since the world turned upside down. Okay, and the aircraft is still holding 280 knots. We're around about 3,000 feet. We were at 3,000, it just dropped to, there we go, it's back up to 3,000, and you can see we've got our next waypoint up there. And we've got a nice strong side wind, so the aircraft is fighting that at the moment. Okay, and we're turning on to our initial point before Coningsby, and we will get to that point and see if it's clear. Turning on to FI-25 now. I made the mistake of saying F-125, so disregard that. The weather is absolutely awful here. Well, it's not as windy as it was at Valley when I was doing the cold start demo. And we're now turning on to Coningsby, which is there. and that's using the flight plan and autopilot in conjunction. Just hitting the nav button. As long as this is an FMS, all's good. If I was to switch it off, things wouldn't be so great, but we'll stick it back on FMS. Okay, and there's Coningsby, and we're back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the flight, and now we're going to do some manual navigation and then look at the autopilot proper. And then, last but not least, I'm going to bring the aircraft in on ILS in complete stormy weather. We're off the Lincolnshire coast here, North Sea over there to my right, and we're going to do some manual navigation. And what I mean by that is we're not using a flight plan, using the autopilot just to follow it. We are going to use autopilot in conjunction with frequencies for VORs, TACANs, and all that various stuff. So at the moment the autopilot has got us on nice level 2,500 feet, or there or thereabouts. I've set the aircraft speed at 240 knots, and we are on heading to 330. Now let's get some frequencies in. So we need to set up our HSI here, so we can either use map mode or the classic CDI mode. I'm going to use map mode for the moment, and I'm going to get rid of TACAN there, put VOR in, and the bearing pointer I'm going to put in as VOR. Now let's stick in a frequency, so I'm going to put in Trent VOR, go to ILS, we are going to go to frequency for nav1, put in 115.700, enter that, and we've got a green arrow, and it's telling us that we are 71.4 nautical miles away. And if we come up to here, it'll give us our ident for the frequency, which is TNT for Trent, and we've also got some information up on the HUD here. We've also got a marker letting us know where we need to be pointing. So you can fly this manually without autopilot. I believe if I hit the nav button, it will turn on to it, because I've got it in nav mode here. As you can see, the aircraft is now turning towards that VOR. Or if I turn nav mode off and just use the heading bug, I'm going to turn the heading bug to that course as well. You can turn the aircraft in 3 separate ways. As long as you've got VOR in the nav selection here and bearing pointer. If it's in the bearing pointer, you can do it manually or with the heading hold, and if you have the nav mode in VOR, it will do, and hit nav, the autopilot will follow onto that. So if I hit nav again, it will make the slight corrections that are needed to get on that VOR. Now I'm not going to fly all the way to Trent because, well, look at it, it's 68.1 nautical miles away. So what I'm going to do, I'm now going to go to heading hold and put the heading at 294, and now we're going to change the frequency to Ottringham 113.900. So frequency 113.900, enter that. And you can see we've got OTR letting us know that Ottringham VOR is in. Also have our DME, our course bearing, and again we can do this manually. We can do it through the nav, or we can do it with heading hold. This time I'll do it with the heading hold again. So we turn the heading hold to heading there on the green line. Ottringham's just over here, so not far away at all. 10 nautical miles in fact. After that, so as you can see, we've got a VOR in a triangle there. We've got the marker there on the heading tape, and we even have the marker on our map here. So plenty of information is being fed to you from various different positions. As long as you have the right setup in these switches down here. You can even use this sliding VOR pointer. You can turn that off as well, so there's not a second pointer. As long, yeah, like I say, as long as you've got the right switches on and you're using the correct autopilot buttons, or manually, you can easily get to where you need to go. And if I show you here, we turn the course deviation indicator there. If you want to do some manual, you can do, because you've got a deviation indicator telling you where to be spot on the actual VOR. We can actually watch that swing as we go over the top of it. Another 5 nautical miles. As you can see, a deviation indicator will swing out the closer we get to it. You can see it's starting to move now. Okay, 3 nautical miles away. Green arrow is starting to swing around. Don't believe I'm actually on top of it. It's definitely out to the left here. There it is. No, it's not. That's not it. I do have the VOR add-ons that give it the actual beacons. So it's out here somewhere, or it could be just down here out of view, as we are swinging over the top of it. As you can see, the course needle is now behind. We've got a dashed CDI. We change that course back the other way, it will turn solid. If it's dashed, we're away from it. If it's solid, we're going towards it. Right, now let's do TACAN. So we'll change this up a bit. Again, we're going to put TACAN as the nav source, and I'm going to come up to TACAN here, change the channel. You can change the band as well if you've got a Yankee. So change the channel to 48 X-ray. As you can see, we're 40 nautical miles away, and we can turn that course needle in the right direction. Okay, and if we want to use heading hold to do that, we can just turn the heading bug to where we want to go, or I can hit nav. You can tell we've got the TACAN because we've got Morse code in, and it's also showing on the map. So if we zoom in, there we go. And as we have a 40 nautical mile gap between us and Coningsby, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the heading bug around here. I'm going to come out of nav mode and put heading hold. Change the course needle. Make sure that we're bang on with that. Okay, so the TACAN, you can see Coningsby there. Actually, you've got the little diamond letting you know where it is. And zoom out. should have a little diamond pop up when we get a little bit closer. So we can do some autopilot now, as we have got a bit of time to kill before we get to Coningsby. So like I say, heading hold, if that's in, as long as autopilot and flight director are on, changing your heading bug direction will turn the aircraft. Altitude is altitude hold, and altitude hold only. So whatever altitude you're at, you click that, it will hold it. Nav, I've just covered that in both this part of the navigation and the previous navigation exercise with the flight plan. Indicated airspeed, I've shown you, you have to get to the speed you want and then click the indicated airspeed hold. There is no speed up or slow down, it will only hold the speed that you want. Approach, I'll show you that in a minute, and vertical speed, I'll show you that now. So we're going to change the altitude to 3000. Okay, now as you see, altitude's not changing. So we want to click vertical speed mode, click vertical speed here, and we're just going to increase to 1000 feet per minute. And what that will do is it will climb up to 3000, it should level out, and then click back over to altitude hold. And you can hear the engine's RPM is climbing while it tries to keep 240 knots in the climb. Getting close to 3000 feet now, and you can see it's already clicked over to altitude hold, so that will be ready for when it gets there. Snuck off course slightly. Our course and heading are correct. Now this side of the primary MFD has some bits that you can do with this multifunction knob here. Altitude, you select your altitude that you want by clicking that and then changing it via here. Barometric altimeter, if it's out by, I don't know, 60 feet, you can click that and adjust the millibars to the correct setting and get it to 0 out. Your decision height, you can choose that with this knob as well, as long as that button's clicked. In conjunction with the vertical speed hold, you can adjust whether you're climbing or descending with this knob as long as that button's been pushed. Under here is all to do with the primary FD range, but it's inoperable at the moment, as is arc, and this is your second bearing pointer, which you can put in your next waypoint VOR, and then track onto that, and then switch between the two. And like I say, you've got TACAN, mission computer, which doesn't really do anything, and then your flight management system for flight planning. So that's autopilot. Like I say, the last function is approach, and I will show you that shortly. There's 20 nautical miles to go. You may just have to take my word for it that we're heading towards Coningsby, but we are. I could speed it up, I suppose. And And there you can see Coningsby to my right. Okay, and of course the deviation is swinging out because we are going past it. Okay, so that was using the TAC and getting back to Coningsby. So the next part is going to be ILS approach. I'm going to do this in really, really bad weather, using the Autopilot. So, see you in a second. So we're back and we're still cruising at 3,000 feet, 240 knots. And now we want to do an ILS approach in this awesome weather. So, first things first, we need to set up our navigation aids. So we're not going to use the nav system, we're just going to use this purely off of heading, hold and approach. And then we want our bearing pointer as VOR1. Next we want to change our ILS frequency, and we're going to put in nav 1 frequency 111.150, enter. Okay, we've got an ILS magenta line now, which is behind us. Okay, and I believe I can change that using the nav and put a bearing pointer on it. But I'm going to head north first, and actually put the course needle back in the same direction. And we're going to turn our heading bug to north. Okay, we're going to make our turn. 19.2 nautical miles away. Like I said, we're not going to be using the nav button at all, but we'll put it in there so that we have our localizer / deviation indicator there. We do have our glide slope ILS bars there, as they are repeated in the HUD when we get a bit closer. Okay, so we're going to head north. We're going to track north a little bit. I'm going to wait for this to start creeping in so that we can catch it and line up. Comes the rain. Okay, deviation indicator is starting to creep. And start turning it in, but we don't want to go straight in. We want to try and get that deviation indicator as close to central as we possibly can, just to help ourselves out here. I think I may have come in a bit too shallow. Okay, glide slope and localizer bars are back up again. Okay, here comes the deviation indicator. And we're going to overcook that. So we're going to come in and try and chase that as best we can. I did a really poor job of that, so I do apologise. But you can learn from my mistakes. After all, I am human. As long as we are sort of facing the right direction by 10 nautical miles, I'm happy. Okay, and it's coming back. Going to take off the speed hold, and we're going to throttle down to get 200 knots. Once we hit 200 knots, I'm going to hold it again. Okay, so let the aircraft do the work. How far are we now? 13 nautical miles. As you can see, we've got a diamond there with a dot in, letting us know where the airfield is. We have a 10 knot head / side wind type thing going on there, so it may be a little bit bumpy going in. And you can see we're being pushed out already. Okay, so we're almost below 10 nautical miles out. Okay, getting the gear down. And I'm going to set the flaps to take off. And I'm going to hit the approach button. Okay, and now we're going to let the aircraft, or the autopilot, wrestle with the weather. And we're going to take the speed hold off and start slowing down. We want to approach speed of around about 120 knots. Then once we hit the threshold, we need to be doing 110 ready for touchdown. Okay, we're below 2,500 now. The radio altimeter has kicked in. Radar altimeter, sorry. Our decision height is 200 feet. So we want 120 knots. Just going to hold that for the minute. And you can see the runway for Coningsby is just poking out of the bad weather there. Stick the landing flaps in. We bang on glide slope, bang on localizer. 6 nautical miles out. I was kind of hoping that it was going to be bad weather all the way through here, but trust it to open up just as we make the approach. As you can see, the autopilot's doing an incredible job of keeping that approach nailed right to the centre. Take the speed hold off for the moment. Some small adjustments here and there. I'm starting to creep below the glide slope. can see all of our information for the ILS. ICMY 2.3 nautical miles away is there, and yeah, there's just information everywhere, so there's no reason why you can't get to where you need to be. Oh, and bad weather is closing in just as I make my approach. Good job I'm on ILS then, isn't it? Comes the rain again. So we want to be making around about 110 knots as we hit the threshold. Okay, might be a little bit premature there. Still hitting 110 knots though. Okay, make slight adjustments as we're coming in, and wow. Okay, throttling back, pulling up, and we're down. Lovely stuff. We survived. Don't forget to turn off your autopilot. Okay, so that was navigation with a flight plan in the FMS and using autopilot, also manual navigation using the autopilot, and also doing an ILS approach with the autopilot, and navigation in various modes, TACAN, VOR. So yeah, the weather's awful here and I didn't bring an umbrella. Anyway, if you got this far, thank you for watching, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.